everyone, my name is Chloe, and today I'm here to do part 2 of my December wrap-up. So this is the first month. I have split it into 2 parts, and I think I'm really going to like this because it makes it a lot more manageable. So the second half of December, I read 12 books, and it was 2 2-stars, 1 2.5, 2 3-stars, 2 3.5, 4 4-stars, and 1 4.5. So it was really kind of all over the board, but the average was just a 3-star rating. And so I feel like after leaving the month that it was like a very meh and like not great second half of the month, but I did have some really good ones in there. So the Goodreads average rating is 3.98. So I definitely was harsher than the average Goodreads rating, which is pretty typical. So as far as publication year, I read 2 that were published in 2000 to 2009. 1 that was published 2010 to 2014, 6 that were published 2015 to 2019, 2 that were published in 2020, and then 1 that's coming out in 2021. So as far as on my shelf or not, 7 were on my shelf, 5 were not. Of the 5 that were not on my shelf, 1 was from the library, 1 was from Libby, 2 were from NetGalley, and 1 was from Hoopla. So let's just get into the books. I'm going to try to be pretty quick because I know there is so much Vlogmas / end of the year content, both just like for me as well as in booktube in general. So I don't want to take too much of your time. So let's just go ahead and get into it. So the first one I read in this second half of the month was Dear Thing by Julie Cohen, and I gave this one 2.5 stars. This one is about a couple that struggles with infertility, so their friend decides to like be a surrogate for them, but she's also going to use her own eggs, and this friend has a little thing for the husband, and so there's some weirdness going on there, and I just didn't love the story. 2.5 stars. Then I went on a little binge of Tara Taylor Quinn novels, and so the first one I read was The Friendship Pact, which is her foray into women's fiction. And I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. This one is about 2 females who have been friends with these 2 guys since they were young. They're married, each to their respective partners, and yet there's some canoodling going on between partners, and it's just all about the relationships between the 4 of them, and I really found it enjoyable. It talked a lot about how, like, unconditional friendship and how things don't always look the way you might think they're supposed to, but they're still good. So then I read Merry Christmas Babies, also by Tara Taylor Quinn, and this is a Christmas romance, and I gave it 4 stars. This is about a girl who decides, like, hey, I am not finding a partner, but I'm ready to have babies. And then she gets pregnant, and it's 4 babies. And so it's a guy then that she works with. He's like, hey, I'm going to move in with you. I'm going to help you. I don't want you to be alone in this high-risk pregnancy. And it's their romance. And it was so cute. I love Christmas. I love Friends to Lovers. And so I really enjoyed that one. Then I read Hidden, which is her romantic suspense, and I didn't love this one. I ended up giving it 3 stars, and this one is about a girl who is on the run. She and her daughter have escaped an abusive situation, and so they've changed their names, moved to a new city, and she's got this relationship with this guy, and then her husband, back that she fled from, she thinks maybe killed somebody else. And so then she is kind of dealing with, what do I do? What responsibility do I have? And the somebody else was her best friend. So it is that story, and I gave it 3 stars. It was all right. It just wasn't the best. And then the last one, the Tara Taylor Quinn, is her Lost and Found Baby, and this is like her straight romance. And this one is about a woman whose baby is kidnapped by the baby daddy, likely. And so her and this other guy go in search of the baby. And I gave it 3 stars. It was pretty much your generic romance. Not bad, but not great. Then I read Miracles from Heaven, which is a little girl, her journey to heaven, and her amazing story of healing by Christy Wilson Beam. And so this one is about a little girl who had this intestinal disease. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but had this disease. And so she was in and out of the hospital quite a bit as a young girl. And then she fell down the hollow part of a tree. She was climbing a tree with her sisters, fell down the middle, and should not have probably lived through it, let alone walked away unscathed. And yet she did. And so she tells a story about how she met Jesus in that moment, met angels in that moment. And so it's her story of her, like, trip to heaven. And so I think I gave this 4 stars. Let me double check. Yep, 4 stars. And my reason is because it happened, I think she was like 12 at the current time, so it happened before she was even 12. It's her story to her mother, and then her mother is the one telling the book. And so I think some of this could have been dramatized to make a good book. I'm not necessarily sure, but I did think it was inspiring nonetheless. And all of these kind of like health related things where people see God or whatever it may be always are inspiring, but there's a little grain of doubt in my mind. Maybe I'm a skeptic, but 4 stars. I enjoyed it for a definitely quick, inspiring read. Then I read In a Holidays by Christina Lauren. Everybody and their mother has read this book, it seems like. So if you have not heard, this is about a girl who goes to her family Christmas. Every year her family goes to this cabin, and it's with other families. Like, they have just had these Christmases together, so they're friends that are like family. And she, like, one year has something happen with one of the brothers in another family, and she wakes up full of regrets and not sure what's going on. And then she finds out something about this cabin, that it's going to be sold, and so she is upset. And then on her way out, she is in a car wreck. And so then she wakes up, and it's all the way back at the beginning of her Christmas vacation, and she is kind of reliving the days. And so it's a little bit of the Groundhog's Day trope, I guess, if you can call it that. But I feel like she didn't repeat that many times. But I think I said in my vlog too, it's kind of like when I'm counting with my 2-year-old. Like, we go and go and go, and then it's like, oh, if she misses one, it's like, let's start over. And so then she kind of starts over a couple times until she gets it right, in the sense that she kind of listens to her heart and does what her heart wants her to. And so I enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars. It wasn't the best book I've ever read, but I feel like my expectations were pretty low, and they were definitely met or exceeded. So 3.5 stars on that. Then I read All I Want for Christmas by Jenny Hale, and this was our Book Sisters Book Club book, and I gave it 2 stars. It was so slow and boring, and if you want to know more about our thoughts, I will link the book club up above and down below, but I gave it 2 stars. It is about this girl who is, her grandmother dies and leaves her this house. And so she goes, and she's all like, yay, good, this will move me and my daughter into a better home and a better neighborhood, etc. But she gets there, and this guy that is her age has been a great friend of the family, and the grandmother has left the house to them jointly. So maybe she's playing a little matchmaker from beyond, but they have to figure out how to make this work, because they have different ideas for what to do with the house, and so they have to figure out how to make it work. And it sounds cute, but I feel like none of our characters were very likable, and the pace was just so slow. I really didn't enjoy it. I gave it 2 stars. Then I read The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose, and this was a arc, and I gave it 3.5 stars. And this one is about a couple who, she is like definitely the breadwinner. She is some sort of higher power job. He is an author who is in a writer's slump, and so he is kind of just an insecure man, and he is cheating on her with this woman, and then the woman is found dead at their lake house, and the lake house is where he goes to write. So of course he is number one suspect. She is a lawyer. That's exactly it, because then she becomes his defense lawyer, trying to get him off the murder charges. So it's them working through their weird relationship as they are trying to get him proven innocent from killing this woman and trying to figure out who did it. And I gave it 3.5 stars. I really liked it, but I figured out the twist very early, which for me is not something I normally do. And I don't know, it was just kind of your very basic thriller. Then I read Tales from Another Mother Runner, and this one is a set of stories, really, of like small snippets of different mothers and their experience with running. And in the beginning, it's written by 2 people, and in the beginning, one of them tells their story, a little bit of their story about their struggle with postpartum depression and how running kind of made them feel like human and kind of brought them back to them as an individual, not just as a mom, not just as all these other hats they were wearing. And so I connected with that immediately, and I really wanted more of that. However, what this book ended up being is like hundreds and hundreds of women and their experience in running, and they kind of just so happen to be moms. And this is number 3 in a series, I guess. So maybe I would have gotten more in depth in one and 2, but this one was very broad reaching with not a lot of depth. And I just, for me at this point in my life, I have torn almost everything in my left leg, and so long distance running is just not really a thing, as well as the fact, it's winter at the time. There's all these different things that make distance running a challenge. And so for me, I have kind of resigned myself to shorter runs with more cardio coming from elliptical, biking, more easier things. And so the very specific running and race related things was not as applicable to me as the deeper connection that I wanted from these women who are athletes. Just in general, balancing being an athlete and being a mother. That's what I wanted, and that's not quite what I got from this. So I gave it 2 stars. It just felt so surface that it was not great. Then I read Confessions of a Domestic Failure, and this one, I don't know why. For the first half, I thought it was nonfiction. It is not. I thought it was a memoir, and it is not. But it is about this woman who she is a mom to an 8-month-old or something like that. It's her first child, and she's just kind of feeling like a domestic failure. So she joins this group from this woman that's kind of like the Martha Stewart of motherhood. And this woman is saying all these crazy things you're supposed to do to be a good wife, mother, woman, etc. And so she tries to follow it like it's gospel. And she ends up in this boot camp, and it's really funny. It's really relatable, and I really enjoyed it and gave it 4 stars. And then the last book that I read was The Forever Girl by Jill Shalvis, and this was my favorite read of the month, and I read it on December 31st and gave it 4.5 stars. So this is number 6 in the Wildstone series, but you can definitely read them all as companions. And this one is about Maze. She is one of 3 foster children that is in this family. It has 2 biological children, 3 foster children. Now they are all adults, and they were all separated as children when their house burns down and one of the biological children is killed in the fire. So they're all separated, taken to different homes. Maze had a lot of history of abuse and just a really, really hard history. And then also with that kind of separation and what the foster parents did or didn't do, it really created a hardened heart in Maze. And so now it's years later, they're adults. The siblings, I'll say loosely, have all gotten back together every year around the deceased one's grave on his birthday to celebrate. But then one year something happens, there's a big fight, and Maze loses contact with everybody for 3 years. Well, one of them is now getting married, so they all go back to Wildstone for this wedding, and she has to kind of confront all of the relationships that she has put a wall up and to guard herself from. So Caitlin is the biological one. She is the one getting married, and she is the oldest, and she has always felt really responsible for everybody else. So it's her kind of trying to figure out am I doing what I should? Am I just doing what my heart wants? What am I doing? And then Maze is going in with all of these walls and resentment and things built up around this family, around the people who know and love her best. And then Walker is a guy. He's the only boy, man, whatever in this situation. And he has a need to protect everybody. He and Maze both have a lot of guilt over the fire for different reasons that you'll find out in the book. And he and Maze also have a romantic history that they're kind of a second chance romance being brought to light in this situation. And then Heather is the youngest, and she has been harboring a secret for a long time. So all of those siblings come together, and I'm saying siblings because there's that romantic relationship between Walker and Maze, and it's not a taboo, weird thing. They are all foster children who all came into the family later in life and at different points in their childhood, and so they were not young children when they were brought together. So it's not weird, but they are siblings because they're a part of this family. But it's more of a found family friend group, that kind of thing. And like I said, I really liked it. 4.5 stars. Some of my favorite tropes. But Maze is a little bit of a not like your other girl's girl, and I really don't like that trope. And so it makes sense why she is the way she is, 100%. But the attitude of I'm just not like your other girls, I felt like that was a little bit meh for me. So those are the 12 books I read in the second half of December. So overall, a pretty good month, a pretty good second half. Some duds, definitely, that drag things down, but overall, not bad. So how was the end of your December? Did you get a lot of reading done with all the holidays, or did you get no reading done? This year was so weird. Like, we were at home far more than we were in previous years, but I still didn't get that much done relative to my expectations. Shocker, shocker. So that is everything. Let me know what your favorite book of December was, and we'll see you in the next one.